best moments are before we are on the air. We've had good conversation already with Tony Ersland and also with Tanner Lipset for bringing the coach over. Tony needs no introduction, but he's Purdue's wrestling coach and his Boilermaker team competing in the toughest league in the world. I mean, in big college sports. I mean, you guys, the Big Ten is volleyball. Dave Shondell, Shondell, you guys can probably go back and forth on what's the toughest league, but we'll say that there are no nights off in your league.
No doubt. I mean, just about every team right now is almost a top 10 team. Yeah. You know, it's just a brutal, unforgiving schedule. But that's what I love about it. You know, you always want to know where you're at, where you stand in the national landscape, and there's no doubt when you compete night in, night out in the Big Ten, you know where you stand.
Yeah. You have that chance to go finish your dual meet season on Sunday, Big Ten Network against Illinois, Illinois.
At Illinois, you bet.
What are you expecting out of that, and what do you need to get out of that as you go into the Big Ten championships?
As you mentioned, it's the end of our regular season. You want to obviously close on a high note with a win. They are a team that's on a bit of a roll right now from a dual meet standpoint. You know, earlier we were talking about the differences between tournament strength and dual meet strength. They are very much a balanced team up and down the lineup in their 10 weights. So I expect a very good duel. A hard-fought duel. Their kids have been wrestling hard all year, so we expect great competition on Sunday.
Hey, talk a little bit about the difference. Again, you explained it to us before we went on the air. I'm sure a lot of people are like me that may not understand the difference.
Yeah, dual meet measures team strength. There's 10 weights. All 10 can score, okay? And so you can't hide any one man. They all go out as individuals, but they score points for their team, okay? So you're going to be measured on your team up and down, where if you're weak at a weight or two, that's going to really show up and affect the outcome of the duel. Where when you get into the national championship, let's say, an individual can score a lot of points, depending on if he's in the finals or in the top 3 or 4, and then those balanced kids aren't placing. They're not quite as outstanding in a national field. So very much an individual can score a lot of points for you in that tournament setting, where a duel, every individual is going to really count and have an effect on the outcome.
Yeah, when you have that, and it takes that balance in that. But how does it, as you train through the course of the season, I think one of the most difficult things about wrestling is that not only you have to continue to stay at weight, you've got to be in shape, the premium on dieting, and we'll hit that for a little bit, but how do you continue to, because you have 3 weeks, is it 3 weeks before the Big Ten championships?
That's right.
Does that change your strategy as you look through these the grinder schedule that you face, especially in late January and February in the dual meets?
Yeah, for us, like most sports, you're measured by your last competition, which is the NCAA championship. So we build our schedule based off that third week in March, and then we'll work backwards as far as peaking and training and those things. And so this year, I did give us an extra week. So normally we would compete into that February 22nd weekend and then go first week in March with Big Tens. But because of how rugged the schedule has been the last few years, I decided that I wanted an extra week to, at first, hey, maybe we'll give them a couple days to kind of just decompress, relax, get off the mat, let them get their body back and their mind back, and then we'll start our hard training cycle where we can, peak. But, it's just trying to figure out, play with the timing of when you can be sharp, when you can kind of give them a little time to be students, catch up on things, and I'm really hoping that this extra week off is going to pay off for us as we try to taper and peak at the end of the year.
It's a team sport, obviously, Tony, but again, we talked before we went on the air about you're out there individually, all by yourself, nowhere to hide. Sort of give the viewers an idea, maybe some of the Purdue wrestlers, as the season hits its apex here, some of the Purdue wrestlers they maybe should keep an eye on.
Yeah, we've had a great year so far. You can kind of look at 4 of the kids who are ranked nationally in the top 8, and of course for us, top 8 is All-American honors. So that's kind of always the goal: national champion and All-American. And if you start at the bottom, we have a really strong leadoff man, 125 pounds, Devin Schroeder, ranked as high as 5th. He's like 6th in some polls. He's been getting it done all year for us. Just a handful of losses to the best kids in the country. He really gets us started. Gets our motor running and gets the group going. 157-pounder, Kendall Coleman, redshirt freshman, ranked 6th or 7th in the country, depending on the poll. For a freshman, has shown great composure. You see kind of the talent. He has some outstanding physical gifts, but I'm telling you, his mat presence, his composure out there for a freshman has been great. He's been very consistent for a young guy. And then really our senior leadership, Dylan Leidy, who's number 4 in all the polls, senior, who's been what we call round of 12. That means knocking on the door road to be an All-American. Been right there the last couple of years. He's maybe 28-1 right now. I think is pretty close. Just the one loss to the lone number one ranked wrestler in the country, and so he's really looking to close out strong. He's the guy who kind of models for our younger guys what it is, what they have to do day in and day out to operate at a high level. And then certainly another senior, Christian Bruner, who's ranked in the top 8 as well. Christian right now, people haven't necessarily seen him the last couple of events because, we're holding him out. He had a bit of a knee issue a few weeks ago, and we just didn't feel like it was going to be worth the risk to bring him back too soon. So we're going to keep him out until Big Tens. But Christian has been there, another guy that's been rock solid for us all year long.
What's the difference between what, even though it's as physical a sport as you can find, but it is a psychological sport, I would guess. How do you work differently with these talented freshmen? I mean, Kendall Coleman, the second highest ranked freshman in the country, a lot of expectations, had a lot of success.
Yeah.
But what's the difference between how you coach up a freshman and then you have these seniors with also high expectations? Is it to the individual, or is there a natural path that you seem to watch guys go throughout their course of their career?
Yeah, guys like Leidy and Bruner, who are seniors, they're rock solid right now because they've been through the wars and the battles, and so they kind of know what to expect and how to handle situations. A guy like Kendall, you just want to make sure he knows what's coming down the road, right? Like you kind of every step of the way, here's what to expect, here's how we want to approach this, and so maybe you do a little bit more mentoring, I would call it. So you're always in their ear about certain situations or how you want to handle things. But as I said, Kendall, kind of a low-key kid, and has handled things really well. Like I said, like you watch out on the mat, he's experienced by this time a variety of situations and really doesn't show like he gets frustrated or anxious out there. He just takes it in stride and wrestles the next situation, to the best of his ability.
Yeah.
Hey, you were an Iowa guy, wrestled for the legendary Dan Gable with the Iowa Hawkeyes. So you can put perspective on this, so sort of talk a little bit, too, about how you think wrestling has changed over the course of your tenure as a student athlete till now being a multi-year coach.
Yeah, I think it's probably the evolution of what most sports have become, though, where access to better coaching, to better nutrition, to better strength and conditioning, like those, you're getting your hands on better kids sooner. So it's not as much of a surprise to see a true freshman or maybe a red shirt, where before in wrestling, where it's a very physical sport and there's a huge difference between a 17-year-old boy and maybe a 23 or 24-year-old man, right? That gap has been closed because of all the training and competition opportunities that these kids have. And it's just like anything else too, where the technique is so much better. You know what I mean? Like there's been an evolution of different techniques and how to wrestle different situations, but these kids all get exposed to them so early that you have your hands on a better athlete and a better wrestler. So quite often it's about handling the transition, of college and stepping up a level in competition.
Yeah. Take me through your recruiting cycle. Obviously, when you go out and look at prospects, is it solely tournaments? Is it, and when do you really start? Because again, physical maturity plays into this. Somebody that might be at a lower weight class could grow, and what are some of the things you look for, and where do you go get your talent?
Yeah. Very fortunate the Midwest is quite often a hotbed for talent. So we're looking right here in the Midwest. New Jersey, though, Pennsylvania, those are states that you want to go to as well. But you look for that minimum skill set, right? Like you have to have talent, there's no doubt. The Big Ten being as tough a league as you mentioned, you have to have physical skills that are necessary. But then really it's looking for the attitude, those kids who want to train and compete in a way that fits with your program. Everybody has different styles, how you want to attack, how you want to score, just like any sport. And so you really, for me, I look at those kids who are really highly goal-driven, but then understand the sacrifice that has to take place to get there. If they're willing to put in that work ethic, then they'll do well in our program. So I'm looking at the attitude and the work ethic for the kid once you establish, hey, he has these skill sets that fit what we're looking for. I just think, when you talk about the nutrition, those goals, being goal-driven and having the focus to not just stay on it in the short term, but for that long term to know that, I can't win the national title tonight, but man, if I go off my diet and I get really heavy, it's not something you just bring it right back down tomorrow. You got to bring it down, let it stabilize. So those kids, they got to be really mature and really focus on what their goals are, and not just live in the moment where, hey, I want to have a good time tonight, so I'm out the door and I forget my diet, and now boom, we're heavy and we've got to start all over, bringing it down in a gradual manner. manner. So you really look at those kids who you feel like are goal-driven and have that great work ethic that you're looking for.
You know, people always talk a lot about facilities and resources available in college football, college basketball. It's an arms race.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, I'm sure other people are curious to know, Purdue's facilities, the resources available to you to make the wrestling program as good as it can be.
Hmm?
What do they have, and how's that sort of fit into the landscape of the other Big Ten schools of wrestling?
Yeah, you're right. At some of the schools, University of Iowa, where I'm an alum, obviously, they've had such a strong tradition. The money that they pour in there is really high. Penn State's been very strong. So Penn State, Iowa, Ohio State right now, there is certainly an arms race. Ohio State has kind of the Covelli Center, which is, almost solely wrestling, you know what I mean? So certainly there are the high ends. I would put us right in the middle, and honestly, I understand young people, that can be part of it, right?
Yeah.
But honestly, that can't be the sole thing, right? Like, we have everything at Purdue for people to be successful. We have the dietitians and the strength coaches in the weight rooms, and we have a nice big room, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I like the workmanlike aspect of our room.
Yeah.
I think that says work is done here, so I don't get caught up in the glitz and glam as much. Certainly you want to keep up where you don't want to lag and be at the bottom, and that certainly is not us. But you can find that arms race in wrestling as well. There's no doubt it's part of the college landscape, but I think I've been very fortunate in my time here at Purdue where they've been continually helping us bump it up, move it up, recognizing that you need to do that to keep up, I guess, with people.
The Norm Blake Center, right?
Yes.
And it's in Lambert Fieldhouse, and
Yes.
and where the pool used to be, and was refurbished.
Yeah.
When I always say it's been 10 years ago, it's probably been longer than that. But it is a facility that you're allowed to do. Talk about your home environment, because you obviously. Occasionally wrestle in Mackey Arena, but you also have the opportunity to wrestle in in where volleyball plays as well.
Yep.
That is a great environment for you from that
Yeah,
standpoint.
love Holloway. We do go into Mackey, as you mentioned. Honestly, we do that. I mean, it's an opportunity to grow the crowd,
Yeah.
but it's kind of a special thing
Yeah.
that I think everybody in their career should be able to wrestle in there. 4 or 5 times, in their career. But Holloway is a tremendous environment.
Right.
It brings the crowd right down on the mat. It gets very loud, and you want that home mat advantage. That Coach Shondell enjoys so
Yeah.
much as well. So we love Holloway. It gets filled. It's packed. It's
Yeah.
loud, and it's a great environment to wrestle in.
How much of that home mat advantage? I mean, you always talk about it in basketball and where it is. I assume it is a big deal. And going on the road is an extra challenge too, because it's just the more people that are in the ear of the opponent.
Yeah, we as coaches, you want to make sure your team understands, because it's 10 individual battles
Yeah.
for us, okay? But momentum plays a part,
Yeah.
and so you want to make sure that you keep the crowd out of it. Give them a reason to sit on their hands and
Yeah.
stay quiet, because you're taking the fight to the other team, and that's why I appreciate what Devin Schroeder, our lightest weight,
Yeah.
does for us, because he comes out and gets the ball rolling and establishes momentum for us. So it's simply a situation like most things where you want to keep the momentum away from the other team, keep the other crowd, out of it, and don't let them get loud, don't let them influence the official. They're people too. They get excited if everybody's calling for stalling or they think they saw points. So I don't want to make too much of it, because I think every man has a chance to have a big say in that themselves. But certainly for keeping the momentum down and keeping the home crowd out of it is a big deal.
Hey, a good way to follow you guys is on the Purdue Sports website. I know Tanner does a great job, and I go there and I see the Always Aggressive podcast.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit, a good way for fans who maybe can't get out to a meet, live out of city, out of state, to maybe to keep up with wrestling.
Yeah, no doubt. And this is just keeping up too with how people consume
Yeah.
sports anymore.
Yeah.
And I understand a lot of people can go to social media and check results. So what we try to do with the Always Aggressive podcast is simply, we certainly touch on results, but we go deeper.
Yeah.
Maybe some things that are going on with the team or how we can promote wrestling. It's an Olympic year, so
Yeah.
we'll talk some Olympic stuff going on with individuals, right? So it's just a way to maybe pull people in that they want to know more than just the scores. And so that, I think it's been great. I enjoy, instead of just doing the dry talk all
Yeah.
the time, so to speak, right? We can talk about recruiting, in certain ways, and just go other places with it. And it's been well received. We've been excited with the way it's going so far.
Good.
The wonderful world of social media, but there's many great advantages, the way to be able to tailor your message to your fan base and be able to do that, a very important thing. All right, so it's 2 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Central, Purdue, Illinois, Big Ten Network.
That's right, we're on
So you're
TV.
gonna shine your shoes, and you're gonna be ready to go.
That's right.
And that will be a big match for the Boilermakers as they close out the regular season. Then the Big Ten championships, which are being held at
Rutgers. We're going to the rack.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, it's going to be in the rack, too.
It's going to be in the
Okay, that
rack.
makes
It's going to be a tight environment. It's interesting. You guys probably can
Yeah.
see on TV. It's a very tight environment for a basketball court. They're going to put 4 wrestling mats. I can't wait to see that.
Yeah.
And then they're going to have the crowd on you as well. So it's going to be an interesting environment to compete in as far as our conference championships goes.
And then NCAA championships in Minneapolis, right?
Yeah. So talk about the opposite, okay? So
Yeah.
now we're on the Minnesota Vikings football field.
Okay.
And
that great facility.
It's tremendous. Here's the exciting thing for that. We've always been relegated to around 18 to 20,000 seat arenas.
Yeah.
And so the attendance record's over 100,000. This year, I understand they've sold 40,000
Yeah.
tickets a session already. It looks like from a pure attendance standpoint, we'll be over 200,000, which should be awesome to see for the sport of wrestling.
And you've got some kids that can make their difference at that event as well. So
We're excited for the end of the year. Those 4 young men, as well as a few others, right?
Yeah.
They can have some great finishes to their years.
all right, we're going to let Tony get back to getting his team ready for Sunday's match and throughout for the rest of the season as well. We'll take a short break. Tony, thanks so much for your time.
Thank
We
you,
really
guys. Appreciate it.
And to Tanner as well for bringing you out today. And it's always nice from this show's perspective to have talk a lot of football, a lot of basketball, but great to have a chance to talk a sport that's a part of Purdue's history as much as anything else too, is wrestling. Purdue has a very rich tradition and long-term history of the program. So we'll look forward to talking more, and we'll make this an annual visit, and we'll take a 2-minute break and bring in Kathy Wright-Eager. Tony Ersland's a legend. Kathy Wright-Eager, also a legend here at Purdue Athletics. We'll look forward to doing that in a couple of minutes on Golden Black Live.
Let State Farm agent Trent Johnson handle all the moving parts to your insurance. Whether it's for auto, home, life, or financial services, Trent Johnson is there with more ways to help and more ways to save.